Hi, I'm Jason Harris. I'm from the EO chapter in Adelaide, South Australia, with the beautiful sunny Australia. I'm founder of Scammells Auctions. My message is believe in yourself more and lifestyle by design, not by default.
Sweet, thank you.
TikTok, let's talk. This is the Miten Shah Show. We've asked the same 7 questions to entrepreneurs from all over the world to figure out what makes us tick. TikTok, let's talk.
Thank you very much for coming, Jason.
My
really
pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Jason, if you had to explain to a 7-year-old child what you do, how would you do it?
7-year-old. So I find old things and I sell them to people who really want them.
Awesome. So like a cool Indiana Jones.
Yeah, very less treacherous than the Indiana Jones, but we go and find some old things that might have been tucked away for 50 years or a couple of generations, and then we bring them to market for sale.
Awesome. Yeah. So a lot of negotiation on the buying side, and but you auction it, so that's also live not negotiation but bidding there.
Yeah. So our sales are really easy. So it's actually all the work's done right at the front when we find the piece. Then it's really up to the buyers then, and to sort of see the reaction and see emotion take over. That's the coolest part.
But on the buying side also, it's a lot of emotion. No? In the
huge amount of
that
emotion.
you're playing. Yeah, absolutely. What got you started on this?
Okay, my journey's an odd one. So my parents were both professionals. They saw my path to be in a suit and in an office and doing something very professional. So I started as an accountant, and I was studying to be an accountant, and I got 2 job offers on one day, one working in an accounting stream, so within a large corporation, and the second one was to work for an auction room. And I chose the auction room only because it paid, I think that time was $3,000 or $4,000 more a year. So I'm 47, so that was a fair bit of money when you're a 17, 18-year-old. And I chose that, and I remember my first auction, and I went home dreaming of numbers, and I thought, I've got to do this. This is so much fun. And then 30 years later, I'm still doing it.
Awesome. During this period, what kept you up at night, and what made you jump out of bed in the morning?
Second one first. So the jump out of bed's that find. So finding that next really cool object. It doesn't necessarily have to be antique and old, but it's that discovery moment where you go, oh, we've just found the next nugget of gold or the next gem. Yeah. What keeps me up at night? I think it's what dawned on me about 7 or 8 years ago is that it's not just my employees that I've got to be responsible for. It's their families, and that I've got say 15 or 16 people. But you're looking at 45 or 50 people by the time you add their families you're responsible for. So that's the stuff that keeps me awake, to make sure that my decision-making process is rational most of the time. Because I've got a lot of people under my responsibility.
So is the responsibility on one side and the excitement on the other side?
Oh, they are, yin and yang. I suppose in some ways that item that keeps me up at night is also the one that inspires me in the morning to do better as well. How do I do better? How do I keep pushing? How do I push myself? How do I push my staff? How do I push my business? So they work hand in hand.
Is a lot of buying delegated, or is a lot of it done by you?
So we don't buy what we sell. So we are agents essentially. So we bring to market on behalf of the vendor. So we're constantly out there doing appraisals and doing that discovery moment with the vendor. And then once we bring it to market, the negotiation's really up to the buyers. They're in there and they're literally, or not literally throwing money, but they are, in analogy, they are throwing money.
Yeah,
and that's the really cool part.
Yeah. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you started on this journey?
Surround yourself with people who know more than you do. I'd say I've got a young brain, and that worked against me early on. I thought I knew everything, and I thought I could solve everything myself. And it's really since EO that I've discovered that I actually know very little, and that's a really cool thing for me. And so surrounding yourself with people who know more than you do and just who want to teach you and you can learn from.
Awesome. Talking about learning from, what are some of the mistakes that you've made that others can learn from?
Not asking for help. Okay. Not having too much pride and the ego to stand in the way to say, actually, I need some help here.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest learning for me is don't be ashamed of asking for help.
Looking back, what are some of the moments that you're most proud, happy, content, satisfied with?
We have an inspection day every Saturday morning. So we sell on a Monday about 1,000 lots, and we do that every week, sell about 50,000 lots a year. So one of my proudest moments is on inspection day, which is a Saturday morning, and we open at 9 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, my auction room is full of people who are just wandering around, and they bring in the wife and a coffee and the dog, and they just walk around, and it's a really social event. And so I feel like I've created more than just a business. I've created a place for people to go to and they meet old friends, and so that's a really cool thing. To see my staff develop and to explore new things and to sort of challenge me, that's a really cool thing for me as well.
The way you describe it, it's like that show on BBC, Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah,
Is it that
in
sort
some
of
ways,
community?
yeah, less stuffy than that, but it is that community thing where people sort of come in and they have a shared, even though they don't know one another, they have a shared vision or dream, or they have a shared love of things.
And the great thing with that is the community is even the people who are watching it on TV. I mean, I remember that's a show I always used to enjoy watching, and I can imagine your events are events that people are always looking forward to go to.
Yeah, especially when you have something that you might think sells for $1,000 and it sells for $10,000, and you see people go, oh, why is that? Why at that moment?
Awesome.
Really cool.
So if you had a billboard and you could put on any message that you want, what would that message be?
I've got two.
Okay. I'll get you two billboards.
I'll hold the space. Two billboards.
There you go.
The back and the front of the same one.
If you're the highest bidder, I'll let you have it.
Love it. So probably the first one is lifestyle by design, not by default. It's something, and I don't know where I heard that from before. It might have been a TED talk, but it's something that's for me has really rung true. Design what you want. Don't just default to what you're given. The second one is believe in yourself. ... more. That'd be my two.
Yeah, sweet. Looking back now, how has EO made a difference either in your personal, business, community, or family life?
So, to get in touch with your feelings, that's probably the number one thing. My wife's seen not a complete change, but a very substantial change in my behaviours, the ability just to stop for the moment and try and empathise with the problem that person's having, to express how I'm feeling rather than just go straight to the anger or straight to the sadness. It's sort of express that. So the feelings thing, because as we know in EO, it's all about how do you feel, not necessarily the problem, but how does that problem make you feel. Also the people, my forum mates, they are like brothers to me. They know more about me, and I'm sure this is the same for everyone. But I've found my people, I've found my tribe, and I can walk into that forum experience and just let every guard down and go, there it is there. And have no judgment. That's the coolest part of it. I love my friends, but if I was to sit down and have a talk about some of the stuff I talk about in forum, it'd be straight to, I can't believe you think like that. Or, really, is that what's going on?
What the hell's wrong with you, man?
Like, where I can walk into a forum and go, like this, and they go, yeah, okay, great. Tap on the shoulder and say, yeah, we're really good. And you go, that's the coolest experience. So that personal journey for me is really good. And I had an experience, this was 2 weeks ago. One of my long-term employees was sitting down having a bit of a hard time. She wanted to ask a couple of sensitive questions about her employment, and I sat there and said, we sort of worked through it, and she sat back and went, Jason, EO's been really good for you. And I went, that moment there sort of solidified my very short journey in EO. I thought, if that's what my staff are seeing, then it's a very cool thing.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. My pleasure too.